first of all, welcome to Manchester United. How does it feel to be in charge of this club now?
Well, it's a massive challenge. It's one of the biggest clubs in the world, and coming from Red Bull, now being responsible for the Red Devils, the colors are the same, so it feels to be at the right place at the right time.
You're a lifelong student of the game. What does Manchester United mean to you?
I mean, if we look back into the past, they have won so many titles. They have produced and developed so many top-class players. Last night in my hotel room, I went through the list of all the most famous players of Manchester United, and I mean, you could play three or four different teams with all those players.
Looking around you as well here at Old Trafford, it's not a bad place to call home now, is it for you?
No, I was here 10 years ago together with Schalke when we played in the semi-final of the Champions League. And since then, I think I was here 2 or 3 times to watch Manchester United play when I was in charge of Leipzig and Salzburg, especially when we played Champions League with Leipzig. We also played against each other, but last season. But at that time, I was head of global. But I also watched the game, so there always has been some sort of contact and relationship between ourselves, and Manchester United.
You mentioned the game 10 years ago in the Champions League semi-final for Schalke. What are your memories of those games, and did you get a chance to speak to Sir Alex?
Yes, we spoke after the second leg here. He invited me into his office at Old Trafford in the stadium. He enjoyed the glass of wine more than I did because we had no chance whatsoever in that game. However, we missed out 4 or 5 important first 11 players at the time. And the mere fact that we qualified for the semi-finals with this team against Inter, we beat Inter away 2-5 and at home 2-1. Nobody had expected that at the time. So, that was the first meeting, the first time I met Sir Alec, and then we met again in 2015. At an event of the Kicker Sports magazine for the Benzema Award. We had dinner together, and I'm very much looking forward to meeting him in the next couple of weeks.
In your arrival statement, you said the squad is full of talent, it has great balance of youth and experience. So how excited are you to start actually working with this group of Manchester United players?
Very excited. I mean, they have so many top talented young players. Jadon Sancho, I know from the German Bundesliga. As a matter of fact, I met him when he was 17 in London. We were at the time trying to convince him to come to Leipzig. Then he decided a couple of months later to go to Dortmund, which was not a wrong step from his perspective. And Mason Greenwood, Marcus Rashford, there are so many top talented young players in the squad. On top of that, the experienced top players to work with those kind of players and help them to get better. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that.
Since your appointment, there's been so much talk around the media and fascination with your style of play and how you like your teams to approach the game. For an English football fan who might not be aware of it, how would you describe your football philosophy?
I mean, in football, it's all about control. If you want to win games, you have to have control, no matter if the other team has got the ball or if you're in possession of the ball yourself. And this is probably one of the major targets in the next couple of weeks, to help the team to have control on the game. And at least against the top teams in the last couple of weeks, I saw the game against Liverpool, against Manchester City, at Chelsea, although we won a point there, and even against teams like Watford, the team didn't have control. They didn't have control over the game. And this is something we'll try to achieve with the team. And of course, this has got to do what do we do when we have the ball ourselves, and what are we going to do when the other team has got the ball. And in those 2 areas, I think it's important to develop the team in the next couple of weeks. On the other hand, we won't have that much training time because we play every 3 days. In fact, it's about video footage. Using video material as an important tool to develop the team, train the brains, and at the same time encourage the players to do the right things. And I think it's important to win games in the first instance, and then step by step develop the team into the right direction.
You mentioned it there, in England it's game after game after game rather than train. So how quickly can you get your message across, do you think, to players?
I mean, of course, as I said, you have to do it step by step. And in the first instance, it's all about winning games, having control. And I think in order to get control, we need to be a little bit more proactive in both aspects of the game, with or without the ball. This will be one of the major targets again, to play in a more proactive style.
In the Premier League, you'll be taking on some familiar faces like Thomas Tuchel, who was sort of the weekend, Ralph Hasenhüttl from Leipzig. Does that, in a way, make the move to England a little bit more familiar for you? And will you be speaking to any of those guys about life in England?
Well, I don't need to speak with them about life in England, because I lived in England myself some 40 years ago, and I've been here on and off, so I get along well in the country. On the other hand, Jürgen Klopp is also a German coach at Liverpool. I think we all are busy enough in our own jobs, and there is not that much time to speak with other coaches. This has always been the case also in Germany. But of course, when we see each other, when we play against each other, this will only be, I think, in March or April, not in the next couple of months. I'm very much looking forward to seeing the three of them.
And you mentioned you were in England when you were 21. You were in the University of Sussex down at Brighton. What are your memories of that time, and have you been back there since?
I think I've been back there once, but again a long time ago. But this year at the time was one of the most memorable years in my youth. I lived in a host family at the time. The family was called Seymour in Hove, very close to the current stadium, but at the time they still played at the old Goldstone ground. And I played myself in a small club like what called Southwick, not very far away from the old Goldstone ground again. I have very good memories of that year. As I said, I lived in a family, studied as a guest student at Sussex University, and twice per week I took the fast train from Brighton to Victoria Station, watching football games, going to the theatre. So it was a wonderful year that I enjoyed very much.
So you went to some games. Do any games stand out? What did you go and see back in those days?
Yes, after that year, my teammates from Southwick, they gave me a ticket for the cup final at the time, and the final was West Ham Arsenal. Yes, and I very much enjoyed that game. I love the British humour of the fans, and the way that they encouraged their teams. Yeah. And I was at the old Highbury ground, at the old White Hart Lane Stadium, at the old Goodison Park. So watched quite a few home games at the time.
What's your view of the Premier League? Did you always want to end up in England at some point in your coaching career?
Yeah, but it's not a point of wanting to be there. Having the background of the English culture and the English language, I've always been interested in football, and since that year in the early 1980s, I've been infected in a positive way by the way that football is being played, by the way of the atmosphere in the stadiums. I very much enjoyed that, and in that year when I played myself at Southwick, I also had the experience of how much the players would encourage themselves on the pitch. So I became a different kind of player, and later on a different kind of coach, by encouraging players in training sessions and in the game. This is something that is not so usual in Germany, and that helped me a lot also to develop myself as a player at the time and as a coach.
What would you say is your biggest accomplishment in the game, your greatest achievement?
I think we won 4 or 5 promotions. The first one with my home club at a very young age when I was a players coach in Backnang. The second one with Ulm, 2 promotions from the 3rd division to the 1st division. Then in Hanover we won promotion from the 2nd to the 1st division. After that I was in Hoffenheim, a small village club, and we won 2 promotions within 2 years from the 3rd to the 1st division. And after that I was at Schalke for the second time, the second spell at Schalke, when we played in the semi-finals of the Champions League. In the first spell we played in the cup final and we finished second in the Bundesliga, and now the last 9 years with Red Bull was an amazing time, a club that was only founded in 2009 and winning 3 promotions in 4 years from level 4 to first division. And since then, the club has always qualified for European Cup competitions, for 4 times for the Champions League and once for the Europa League. It was an amazing time there. In the first 3 years, I was sporting director for Salzburg and Leipzig, and after that, only in Leipzig. Twice I was also the head coach at the same time. I mean, what happened there was really unique, amazing, but it would be difficult for me to say what stands out of those 20, 25 years. They've all been great experiences for myself.
You've inspired a lot of coaches, but who inspired you?
Yes, there were, I would say, 2 or 3 people who inspired me. In the first instance, it was a friend of mine. He's Helmut Groß. He inspired not only myself, but also quite a few other German coaches. He was an amateur coach himself. In normal business, he was an engineer building bridges, and he was at the time probably the first coach in Germany who played with a back 4 with ball-orientated zone marking, and I met him when I was 23, 24, and he had great influence on my development as a coach. And since then we've worked together at Red Bull in Hoffenheim. Yes, and during my time as a coach, I was inspired by Arrigo Sacchi at the time at Milan. I mean, in the 80s. They not only dominated European football, but they also created a very sustainable, a very special, a very unique style of football that I liked a lot. And in my first time of coaching in my hometown in Backnang, we played against Dynamo Kiev. I was on the pitch, and I have told that story quite a few times. After 10 minutes, I had to count the players on the pitch because it felt as if they had 1 or 2 players more than my team. And after the game, I spoke to Valery Lobanovsky with a translator, and he told me that they trained that every day, pressing all over the pitch all the time. So I went to see their training sessions, and from then on, I knew why they were playing like this, and that it is possible to play like this if you very consequently work on this on a daily basis in training.
Obviously, you're here as manager, interim manager till the end of the season, but then you've got a consultancy role, which is, I guess, going to guarantee your influence on the club for some time beyond that. So does that extended brief help your long-term planning with regards to what you'd like to achieve at the club?
If I'm honest, I'm not thinking that far. For me now, the most important thing is to get to know the players, with only 2 days, Friday and Saturday, to get to know the players, the staff members, to prepare them for the Crystal Palace game. And then it's about thinking from one game to the other, hopefully winning games, developing the team. And this is what I'm interested in the next couple of days, weeks, and then months. I'm not looking too much ahead. I think it's wise to put your focus on the next games. And as I said, we've got so many games ahead in the next couple of weeks. Crystal Palace, Young Boys on Wednesday, Norwich away, Brighton at home. So the calendar is packed, and there is not that much space in my head to think about what might happen in the next or in 6 months' time.
But it's only been 1/3 of the season, so there's still lots to go.